There is something dark in the Appalachian Mountains. And there's actually like a set of rules that the locals set up that you have to follow if you go hiking there. The first rule is that you can never be in the woods from dusk until dawn. And these rules are like very strictly enforced by the locals. Like, this is no joke. Also, if you have a problem with me saying Appalachian, that's what my teachers taught me to say. I'm from Virginia. I know some people say Appalachian, but in Virginia, I always heard Appalachian, at least from my teachers. The second rule is to never leave the marked trail because it is marked off for a reason. So many people get lost or go missing in the Appalachian Mountains. People have seen weird things. There's so much folklore. And the third rule is if you hear voices close to you, they're far away. But if you hear a voice far away, it is actually near you. And if these voices are saying your name, do not answer them. The fourth rule is do not whistle or sing in these woods. And the fifth rule is never look too hard in the trees because you might not like what you see. And there are so many people in the area that will like talk about this online and be like, do not mess with those woods. They're like, don't mess around, don't stray from the path. Like, this is not a joke. Like, there's some dark force in that woods. There's some weird energy. And these people are like, we don't say this to scare you. This is real. This is real stuff, and we want you to be safe. And this is something that you should not mess with. And that's why we talk about it so much. Like, there are things and spirits in the woods that you don't want to be interacting with. I've also seen people be like, oh, we were on the trail, and there were really sketchy people on that trail, and that you should never go there alone. Like, this mountain range is older than the dinosaurs. Hi guys, my name is Grace. I talk about all sorts of spooky, freaky, crazy, scary things. So if that's the kind of content you like, give me a follow. I got so many videos. Also, this is my angel, my baby Casper. Oh, he don't want to be held right now. We're putting him down. But sometimes you see him running around in the background of the video. He's like resting on the bed right by me. So I always like to introduce him because he's my little angel. But I won't ramble. Let's get into the video. So there are a million myths about the Appalachian Mountains, but we're going to talk about the real life stories. Like, these things are factual. This is true. They're not just myths. These things really did happen. Like, people go missing in the woods after dark, and not all of the explanations are paranormal. Like, this grandmother actually fell into a sinkhole. It was dark, and she was looking for her missing cat in the woods. And unfortunately, she lost her life because she didn't realize that there was this giant sinkhole on the path. She fell 30 feet into an abandoned mine. These woods are filled with old abandoned coal mine sinkholes, and that's a very real danger. It's dark outside and you're walking around. It's harder to see those holes. Pause. But it's like harder to see where the ground is weaker, like where you could potentially fall through, like where you don't want to go step. And this happens when the coal mine isn't filled or maintained that's underneath the hole. So like sometimes the ground will collapse. And this story happened in Pennsylvania, and that's very common in that area. So like literally a third of the abandoned coal mines in the entire US are in Pennsylvania. So obviously it's more common to fall through these holes at night because it's dark. So telling people scary stories about the woods freaks people out, so then they don't want to go into the woods and potentially face this real danger. Now I'm going to insert a TikTok I made where I found a video of something that was supposed to be a skinwalker in the Appalachian Mountains, but you can be the judge of that.
Hey Dad, look at Carly! Get up here, Carly!
At first, I didn't notice anything strange in the video, but then if you zoom in, look at what is over by Carly. This video was taken in the Appalachian Mountains. We all know the eerie mysteries and dark rumors about those woods. You don't go in them alone. This was daytime, but especially at night, there was something in those bushes. And there are all of these rumors about skinwalkers and like all of these supernatural entities in the woods. And whether or not that's true, maybe this is just a stage thing for the internet, but you still have to admit this is really creepy. And it's common knowledge that supernatural entities are more likely to latch onto children because they're easier to like control, because they're innocent and they'll just go along with things. They don't question anything. They're down to believe whatever they see, unlike adults. A lot of you are commenting that you think it could be an ostrich, that I can't pronounce Appalachian, that it's clearly a dressed up person holding on to something. A lot of you think it's an ostrich though. The next video I'm going to show is one that I found online too that I react to on TikTok, where I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a mimic. And if you don't know what a mimic is, I explain. So This is a clear example of a mimic. They're especially known in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's very common for mimics and skinwalkers to decide to go as people's pets because it's more believable. You can't really ask your pet certain questions. You can't be like, "You're not my husband. Tell me this then." You know what I mean? But their dog was already inside. The goal of the mimic is to be able to get inside the house, so do not let them in at all costs. And there is so much darkness and mystery surrounding the Appalachian Mountains and the Appalachian Trail, especially because you can tell here, it's nighttime there. And locals will tell you, do not go there at night. It is not a game, it is a very serious thing. Even if you don't believe in the paranormal lore, there are a lot of really dangerous things out in those woods that you won't be able to see with the naked eye. Like where the ground is weak and can fall through. You can never be too careful out there. And this one's freaking people out. People are saying, "I rebuke in Jesus Christ's almighty glorious name, I pray, amen." I love it when people comment that. Or like, "I don't claim this energy." Like, I love when people comment that shit. It makes me feel so cool and edgy. Now, this next video I found on the internet is pretty creepy. A lot of people are saying it could be a fox, but a lot of people are saying that it could be something darker too.
Where's Izzy? Where's Izzy?
This one comment says, "Something or someone whistles at me every time I take my dog out at night in the Appalachians." And now you can have that video in mind as I tell you this story. This is supposed to be a true story sent in by a user named Jim. And if you want to send me your stories, go to my Gmail. It's in my Instagram bio. So Jim was seeking a fresh start and he decided to sell everything he owned and purchase land in the Appalachian Mountains. He built a cabin and settled into a peaceful life for a year. He enjoyed the solitude and the serenity of the area. Now one day, Jim receives a knock on his cabin door, and when he opened it, he found an older man named Fox who claimed to live nearby. Fox expressed his concern for meeting Jim, mentioning that people who live alone in the woods can face dangers. And Jim feels uneasy, especially because Fox looks remarkably like his late father who passed away when Jim was a child. Also, these are not cover names. Jim and Fox are like the real names. The interaction left Jim very disturbed, but Fox soon leaves, warning Jim to stay safe. Jim is left with a lingering sense of eeriness. Over the next few months, Jim begins to experience unsettling occurrences. One night he wakes up to a sound of scratching at his window, and then when he looks, he sees shadows in the shape of a person move across the wall, eventually circling around his bed. The shadow is followed by an overwhelming feeling of being restrained, as if something is physically holding him down. Panicked and confused, Jim struggles, but the sensation fades. He tries to convince himself it was all just like a vivid dream, but the events continue, increasing with frequency and intensity. A few days later, Jim is setting up some traps on his land when he notices strange movements in the snow. He approaches cautiously, only to uncover several rats feasting on a deer carcass. The sight repulses him, and as he bends over in disgust and begins to vomit, he notices Fox standing nearby. And Fox casually observes the deer, commenting that Jim will see many weird things in the woods. The encounter feels off, leaving Jim to question whether Fox's presence had something to do with the carcass and if he was somehow connected to these sinister events. So life went on and the nightmares continued. And as the nightmares grew more and more vivid and the shadowy figure continued haunting him, Jim found himself one night sitting by the fireplace contemplating his life. He suddenly feels compelled to stand up and walk out of the cabin, his body moving on its own accord as if some force was guiding him. He walked deeper into the woods, and despite his awareness of his actions, he could not control them. Jim eventually stops, and he's surrounded by trees, and then he hears the voice of his father calling to him. He turns to see Fox step out of the shadows, claiming now that he is his father. Jim, confused and scared, refuses, but Fox insists that he has been there all along. Jim's disbelief quickly turns into horror as Fox's skin begins to peel away, revealing a grotesque, pale, disgusting creature with sharp claws, yellow eyes, and razor-sharp teeth. No longer human, but the terrifying form of a Wendigo. The creature demands that Jim comes closer, and its voice is changing from his father's familiar tone to something unnatural. Jim, terrified, breaks free from whatever compulsion has gripped him and runs to the cabin, desperate to escape. After fleeing, Jim abandons his cabin and drives away, but the fear continues to haunt him. Seeking answers, he visits this Native American man who is in town who knows about medicine, like he was known as the medicine guy. The man explains that what Jim saw was in fact a Wendigo, a malevolent spirit from Native American folklore. The creature, the medicine man tells him, thrives on fear and will continue to torment Jim, following him until he succumbs to terror. The more afraid Jim becomes, the more powerful the Wendigo becomes, and the creature will eventually consume him when he is afraid enough. Overcome by fear and uncertainty, Jim decides he's going to sell the cabin and leave the Appalachian Mountains behind, hoping that distance will break this connection. Despite this, Jim continues to hear scratching sounds at his window and sees a shadowy figure from time to time, a haunting reminder that the Wendigo has not left him. So I know in that previous video I showed you it sounded like a fox, but there is a possibility it could be like a Wendigo. I mean, that guy was even named Fox. What are the odds of that happening? So whether the Appalachian is just scary because it is naturally scary in its nature and we just can't predict it, or whether it's really haunted, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's a pretty creepy, scary place. I think the folklore about this is so interesting. I would love to continue to talk about it with you guys if you're interested. If you liked this video, it would really help me out if you gave it a like, just to show your appreciation. I'm a small growing channel. My Instagram is grace.mitcherlich right here, and these are also some videos that I recommend you checking out. Thank you so much for clicking on my video today, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay spooky, guys.